Most senior developers get stuck at the $100,000 to $200,000 income range because they think technical skills are enough. But I broke through my $250,000 salary and became a seven-figure entrepreneur, being one of the worst coders in the entire room. What was the secret? 3 soft skills that most engineers completely ignore. So in this video, I'm going to reveal what these 3 soft skills are and how I, alongside my students, use them to go from employee to 7-figure and 8-figure founders with steps that you can copy right now. Let's get straight into it. Now, you're probably wondering, who the heck is this guy? Let me first introduce myself. My name is Bago, and I wrote my first line of code back in 2016 in MATLAB for my high school robotics team. After that, during a summer program, I went to UCLA to study the human consciousness as a research engineer. After that, at the age of 19, I interned at NASA as a computer engineer, and after that, I joined the private sector in my junior year of a university. I started off as a software engineering consultant, making about $120,000 a year, and in 3 years, I progressed into a manager, making about $250,000 a year. And when I said I was the worst coder in the room, alongside my managers and the senior architects, I was the youngest, so naturally, I had the least amount of experience when it came to technical ability. November 30th, 2022, which was the day that ChatGPT releases, shortly afterwards, I actually quit to found AB Analytics, a B2B AI consulting firm that I earn to this day, and in the last month of October, we did this much in revenue. Keep in mind, this is revenue, this is not how much I take home. Just want to point that out there. And if you want to learn more about me, go to my personal website, link in the description below. You can do that. Without further ado, let's get straight into the main topic. The 3 soft skills that you need as a software engineer to really progress beyond that $100,000 to $200,000 income range. So without further ado, let's start off with the first soft skill. And of course, this is going to be a no-brainer, but it's all about communication. However, not in the way that you might think. So let's break down first what I mean when I say communication. So generally speaking, when you hear communication as a software engineer, you're most likely thinking about talking in stand-up meetings, maybe documentation in your code, or maybe sending out emails. That's probably as close of an idea as you have with regards to communication. However, communication is a lot more than that. Communication for software engineers is all about translation. More specifically, it's about the translation between the technical and the non-technical. So don't get me wrong, regular communication with regards to how you're going to send out emails, what you're going to write, and what you're going to talk about in meetings is still important, just like how communication is important for everybody on this planet. However, specifically for software engineers, the most important aspect of communication as a soft skill is your ability to translate the technical into the non-technical and vice versa. Meaning, you can just as easily explain something to a senior software engineer as well as a product manager. So with this, you will have 4 things to kind of help you out: verbal communication, non-verbal communication, written, and visual. So let's start off with verbal communication, how you can kind of improve your verbal communication when it comes to translation. Now, at its core, obviously, with regards to being verbal, the number one thing we want to avoid when we're going to be connecting the gap between the non-technical and the technical is going to be technical jargon. This is the biggest problem that I see in software engineers who are in this income range, and this is what is hindering them to really grow, whether it be in the 9-to-5 cycle in terms of promotions or in the entrepreneurship cycle in terms of client acquisition and being able to get leads. It's the use of technical jargon. Most software engineers love to talk about the tech. They love to talk about the tech stack they're using. They love to talk about details, to go into detail of the solution of the product itself. However, instead of technical jargon, what you need to kind of obsess about instead, especially when talking to non-technical individuals, is revenue and time. So you can still talk about your technical details, but connect them to what they do to revenue or time. Either they help save you money, make you money, get you extra time, or save you extra time. Either one. And there's a few more things out there, but these are really the 2 that you want to connect it to. So the next time you're in a meeting, whether it's for your 9-to-5, whether it's for a sales meeting that you're trying to close a client for, step away from the technical side and dive deeper into what the actual client cares about. That's what verbal communication is all about, or I should say verbal translation, is being able to connect the gap between the technical and the non-technical. Now, if you're talking to a technical individual, you have to keep in mind the technical jargon. You still can't overuse it, but also, even if it's a technical individual, you have to identify what it is that they actually care about. They might not be revenue and time, but you have to understand what it is that they care about, and that's what's going to improve your communication verbally. Now, of course, you have to limit the use of like, and all these other things, just basic communication skills, but I'm gonna dive deeper into more the specificity for a software engineer that you can take away and take action on right now. Those other things, you kind of have to practice them day to day and get slowly better at them. Whereas with this, it's kind of like a switch. You turn it on and then you instantly turn it off. Now, nonverbal communication has to do with body language, okay? Now, for most of you, you might not be too familiar with this in the sense of if you're working remotely, you're not really gonna convey this outside of being on a Zoom or a Google Meets or, WebEx meeting or something like that. Regardless, whether you're in person, whether you're on a meeting or whatever, especially if you're remote, you always want to have your camera on. The reason you want to have your camera on is so that the other person can see you. Once again, in order to connect the technical to the non-technical, right? To connect these two spaces, because this is literally the only thing that's holding software engineers back. Those of you who are making $100,000 to $200,000, if you simply were able to connect the technical to the non-technical better, you wouldn't have a cap on your income, I should say. Because you think me going from $250,000 a year to multiple seven figures, I actually learned anything technically? Here and there I learned about AI, but I didn't make that big of a jump. The biggest jump that I made is I began to understand the non-technical world, the non-technical world of small business owners, of blue-collar fields, and started utilizing the technology that I know about to help them. I connected a bridge between the two. And to do that, I had to learn a lot about body language, more specifically, how to translate tech into non-tech using body language. One of the biggest ones was being present. In the remote sense, having my camera on, making it a little bit more emotional, putting a face to the name, which in my case, right, if I show up to the meeting, they don't just see if it's Bagoisk, they're gonna see a big B there. They see my actual face and they can connect the face to the name. And then finally, when I talk, they can hear me. One of the most important parts about nonverbal communication, specifically with body language remotely, is having your camera on and talking with your hands, explaining things, not being a robot. In person, there can be an entire deep dive into this matter, but the biggest thing you want to really convey in person is authority. So the biggest problem that I have seen from mentoring countless software engineers is that when it comes to in person, they are a little timid. They don't want to take up a lot of space. And frankly, as a software engineer, you need to take up a lot of space and you need to come off as a little bit more dominant and authoritative, because let me explain why. Your biggest kind of advantage as a software engineer is your technical knowledge. And many people severely overestimate a regular person's technical knowledge. 90% of the population, I'm going to talk about the US here, probably doesn't know the full extent of which their smartphone operates. Meaning, if I have 10 people on the street and I tell them, turn on the blue light filter on your phone so you can sleep better at night, most of them probably won't be able to do it and they would have to search for it. And then you would have a smaller portion that probably doesn't even know how to search for it. And I wish I was making this up, but I am really not. Unless you step out of this tech bubble that you're in, then you'll realize that most individuals, most non-technical people, have a very limited understanding of technology. And it's not because they're dumb, it's not because they're low IQ or any of these. No, it's simply because they're not exposed to it like we are every single day, day in and day out. As a result, you need to emphasize that you are the authority in this, such that they can lean on you and they can trust you when it comes to matters that you'll be able to handle for them. Next up, let's talk about written communication, or I should say translation. In written translation, it's quite similar to oral. We want to minimize technical jargon. But more than that, we want to connect anything technical, and when I say anything, I mean literally anything technical, to a KPI. Meaning, if I'm going to write down any type of technical documentation, if I'm going to send out any type of a message, be it a Slack ping, a Teams message, an email, a text message, anything that I send out that has to do with any type of technology, whether it has to do this API or that or whatever, if I'm going to be requesting even any tech, it has to be related to a KPI. For example, hey, we should use this tech stack or we should do it this way to optimize the landing page. Why? Why do we want to optimize the landing page? Because it can improve conversions, leading to this much growth in revenue. You always connect it to a KPI. So anything technical in your writing needs to be associated with a real world KPI. That's how you connect the technical to the non-technical. If you're going to emphasize anything technical, make sure it is connected to something non-technical as a KPI. And then of course, last but not least here, we have visual. Once again, visual translation. And you're going to keep noticing this pattern when it comes to communication. Minimize your technical jargon. I could have had fancy code up here and all these algorithms, big O notation, all these things, but I don't have them. Main reason is the entire point I'm making this is to connect the technical to the non-technical, and I'm keeping this as simple as possible, as you can see. When it comes to visual translation, you want to have only the visuals that you need to provide as much information as you can convey without having the non-technical person be confused or just simply overwhelmed. The main reason for this is as follows. Generally speaking, visual communication, visual translation is going to be paired with any one or even all of these at the same exact time. So when it comes to explaining to a non-technical person, so from this standpoint, if I'm a software engineer and I'm looking to, let's say, I'm on a sales call with a business owner, a CEO of a landscaping company, or let's say a lawyer, I cannot show the lawyer snippets of code. It is not going to matter, no matter how cool the code is looking, no matter how whatever, he's not going to care, he's not going to understand it, right? There is no translation happening. If I am going to show a visual that has anything tech-oriented, it needs to be connected to a KPI, always. So always keep this in mind. When it comes to visuals, when it comes to pretty much anything that you really see on here, written, nonverbal, or verbal. Now, we do have a little bit of a bonus thing for communication/translation, and that is listening. Listening is the most important part of communication/translation, and the main reason being, if you do not listen, you will not know what to say or do. So in order to first even be able to properly convey your message verbally, non-verbally, written, or visually, you need to be able to listen first to really understand what it is that somebody is talking about. So the biggest takeaway when it comes to the soft skill of a communication, right, as a software engineer more specifically, is being able to translate what it is that you do to a non-technical person with as little friction as possible. Essentially, you're trying to build a bridge from the technical to the non-technical world, and this bridge needs to be as short as possible and as sturdy as possible. If you can do that, then you are pretty much golden. So that's the first, essentially, soft skill that you need to really move on in terms of becoming more successful as a software engineer. Promise you your technical skills are not holding you back if you are at this stage of making $100,000 to $200,000 a year. It's all about your soft skills, and most likely it's going to be about communication, but specifically being able to communicate your own value to non-technical stakeholders, non-technical CEOs, and non-technical people in power that will determine your degree in terms of where you're going to go, be it in a 9-to-5 setting if you're going to climb up and become a partner, or even if you're in a business setting, an entrepreneur setting, you're going to be able to sell to them. It will all be about communication and how well you can market and sell. All of those are byproducts of communication. So learn this skill of translation. And once again, the main takeaway, minimize your technical jargon. If you're going to talk about anything technically, connect it to a real world KPI that somebody else cares about, revenue or time. Next, let's talk about the second soft skill, and it's all about problem solving. Now, this might be a little new to you, but let's talk about why this is important. Problem solving is really composed of 5 specific things: define stage, ideate stage, evaluate stage, implement stage, and review stage. And I just realized that is not spelled correctly. There we go. Reason problem solving is so important is because it has to do with ideation. In order for you to choose a proper idea, right, you're going to need to know how to problem solve efficiently. And why is an idea even important, you might ask? Well, because it's literally what's going to determine how successful you're going to be. The idea that you are going to put all your time and effort into maturing and growing and one day reaping the rewards. The first stage of problem solving, it's all about defining, more specifically, the definition of what it is that you're actually doing. So let's talk about the definition itself. The best way you can think about it is articulation. How well can you articulate the specific problem that you're taking a look at? And more specifically, why is it a problem? What exactly does it do? My website is loading slowly. Okay, why is it a problem? Well, because if it's loading slowly, it pisses me off, okay? Pisses me off and my customers. Okay, but why is this a problem? Well, if it pisses me off and pisses off my customers, they're going to be in a foul mood. Okay, but why does this matter? Well, if they're in a foul mood, they're most likely either not going to wait or just simply instantly they're going to click off. Well, why does this matter? Well, if they click off and they're not going to wait, then that means they're not going to buy. Well, why is this a problem? Well, because if they're not going to buy, then I'm going to be losing money. There we go. So do you understand how we articulated this problem? We started off with the first why. Well, it pisses me off and pisses off my customers. And we finished it with that causes me to lose money. This is why this is a problem. So the first stage of problem solving, to be able to properly solve problems, you first have to get good at articulation, defining what the problem actually is. Best way to do this, the 5 whys. This is what I call them. Number 2, let's talk about ideation, the second stage of really problem solving. So what you want to do when you have your 5 whys is kind of brainstorm. Let me put brainstorm over here. This is the weirdest looking eye. There we go. So brainstorming is all going to be about solutions, but more specifically, quantity over quality. Meaning, if I know that my page is slow, I need to think of solutions. Okay, what are my possible solutions? Well, I can compress all my JPEGs and all my scripts and all these stuff, right, and make them smaller. This will help with my, let's say, loading speed, right? I can potentially use a better stack or a more modern stack that will work better with what it is that I'm trying to do, potentially make that faster. I can remove components from my web page, especially if I see any single one, any singular script maybe is slowing it down a lot. So remove components. And there's a plethora of other things that I could be doing, right? That's really the second stage of me brainstorming how to solve a problem. I'm literally just jotting down all the possible solutions that I can think of. Next is the evaluation phase. The evaluation phase is really all about critical analysis. More specifically, critically analyzing which of these solutions would be the best fit to solve this problem. Sometimes you might find that more than one is the appropriate solution. Maybe a combination. Maybe a combination of removing redundant things that we don't really need, compressing, and hell, maybe even updating our modern stack. But if, let's assume, we are already as modern as we can get, or with the stack that we're using, we can't use anything else for whatever reason, and our only choices are really either compressing stuff, or compressing our images, compressing our whatever else we have there, HTML and all these things, and our CSS, or we simply have to remove certain scripts or replace them with other ones. We're now going to critically analyze to see which one will give us the most ROI. So our return on our investment being time and money. Next, we talk about implementation, and implementation obviously is about creating a plan and execute on your plan. And last but not least, the last step of problem solving is assessment. You assess the results of the plan that you implemented and you see if it actually solved what it is that you were trying to solve. If it didn't, you go through the entire thing again and again and again until you get to a state that you are happy with. That's the second soft skill that you need as a software engineer to advance to the next level. Why did I bring this up? Because with the first soft skill, you learn about communication, how to communicate your own value to the non-technical person and bridge that gap. The second thing you need to do is when you are presented by that non-technical individual, right, a problem that you need to be able to solve, this is what you're going to do to solve it, especially when you get faced with something you have never seen before. And last but not least, the third soft skill that you need as a software engineer to make a lot more money is resilience. Now, this one is you're probably a little surprised by, but let me explain. We're gonna use the PERMA to explain resilience. More specifically, this really stands for positive emotions, E stands for engagement, and excuse my handwriting, I'm trying my best here. R stands for relationships, M stands for meaning, and A stands for accomplishment. Now, why am I even listing resilience here? Well, once you have the communication skills to be able to connect the technical to the non-technical, to enter their world and begin to see problems and begin to be introduced to other opportunities and learn the sales and marketing to really hone in on these opportunities, you will then need the problem-solving skills to be able to adapt solutions to these problems and actually get paid for what it is that you do. Throughout this entire journey, you're going to be faced with setbacks. Things won't work out, they won't go your way, at least not initially. You'll face some pushback. You're going to need resilience to be able to push through it and not give up. Because you roll the die enough times, you will eventually land a 6. So that's where resilience comes in. As a software engineers, we need to make sure that our resilience is built up so we don't crumble under the pressure. And in terms of PERMA, it's actually quite easy. I'm not going to spend too long on this. Positive emotions. When it comes to any specific thing that you're having difficulty with as a software engineer, be it you're trying to bug fix something, or it's a technical thing you're not understanding, or maybe you're having difficulty selling somebody, or you're having difficulty finding an idea, try to cultivate positive emotions. Now you might ask, okay, Bago, is this just another funny way of saying, okay, just don't be depressed? No, that's not what I mean. When I say cultivate positive emotions, the main thing really here is trying to understand that there is always a positive with the negative. What this means is, let's say on a sales call, I couldn't sell. I was gonna get my first client and I couldn't sell that client. And I am feeling down. But guess what? I'm excited because I'm going to take a look at the recording of that call, see what mistakes I made, such that next time I'm gonna learn and not make those mistakes. I am hopeful. I cultivate a positive emotion to keep me going. Okay? That's one example. Next up, engagement. Being actually focused on what it is that you're doing, essentially entering flow state. If you let your mind wander too far off, you're not going to be able to positively cultivate your emotions. Meaning, if I realize that I messed up on that sales call, and I'm hopeful because I am going to review that sales call, learn what I did wrong, and the next one I'm going to do good, I need to be engaged with that specific activity. And I need to be in a flow state, concentrating on that sales call, not scrolling my phone or doing something else on the side. I need to be actually engaged with that activity and sort of provide myself a buffer against all the stress, because in that exact moment, I need to be what? Reviewing the sales call. The next thing when it comes to resilience as a software engineer are relationships. More specifically, not just personal ones, but also business ones. What this means is anytime you face a problem, which you will eventually face a problem, you need to understand that you always have people you can fall back on. Many people, especially software engineers, I don't know, for whatever reason, they think business owners are bad and evil people, or at least they're not going to be as giving as somebody else. In your network, you have plenty of individuals who most likely have businesses or are CEOs or founders themselves. Do not be afraid to lean on them when the time comes, should you require their help in terms of just guidance or asking for advice or asking how they handle this specific type of stress or this type of situation when they were founders. So most often than not, whenever you have a problem with coding or you have a technical bug or something that's annoying you, You go on Stack Overflow, you go on forums, and you ask people to help you when it comes to technical stuff. When you're facing non-technical problems as a software engineer, be it you're trying to sell somebody, be it you're trying to ideate, you're trying to create something out of thin air, I don't recommend you going to software engineers again. Go to a founder and ask the founders how they did what they did and if they will help you or not. That is a key to actually building resilience, is building up your relationship with these type of individuals, and everybody can do it. Next thing, it's all about meaning, having a sense of purpose. So more specifically, working on something that you actually care about, not just stuck in your 9 to 5 in a cubicle working on something that you hate that nobody else is ever really going to use. In order for you to break to the next level in terms of income, you need to be working on something that you find meaningful, such that you can build the resilience to actually get through it and stay long enough with it to build compound interest and actually get paid what you are worth down the line. And of course, last but not least, it's all about accomplishment, and more specifically, mastery. Achieving mastery in what it is that you're doing. Rome wasn't built in a day, correct? Same exact thing with this. To build true resilience as a software engineer, to get to that seven-figure income, to get to that $500,000 income, to get to that $10 million income, whatever the case, to essentially make more than what you're making now, you need to be able to have the resilience to do that. And one of the ways you're going to build up the resilience slowly but surely after you cultivate your positive emotions, enter your flow states to be engaged in certain things, engaged in activities, utilize your network to help you with what it is that you're doing, and actually have a purpose with what you're building and who you're building it for, then naturally it's going to come mastery. You're going to get good at what you do, and that's going to create a feedback loop that's going to feed into itself because you're going to gain self-confidence, and you're going to continue get bigger and better and bigger and better as time goes on, essentially getting to a point where you're too big to fail. And that's really the 3 soft skills that not only I, but plenty of my students had to cultivate and truly understand and learn and emphasize to get to the next income level, be it as an entrepreneur or be it as if you simply even want to climb the ladder. And the most important one, communication. The second most important, problem solving. The third more important, resilience. But honestly speaking, all 3 are just as important. The only thing is, communication is the highest leverage, problem solving is the second highest leverage, and then resilience is the third highest leverage. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope that you have a good one. If you're interested in more videos like this, I have this video over here where I break down specifically how you can pair these with your technical skills to be able to properly utilize them to create a business from complete scratch and get your first paying client. As always, thank you for watching and have a good one.